On a stifling August night in 1851, the air over South Side, Virginia hung heavy with the scent of tobacco and decay. In a slave trader's ledger, among mundane entries of names and numbers, a single line stood out: one specimen, age approximately 19, purchased from Charleston Market, unique physical characteristics, price $2,847, nearly 4 times the standard rate. The buyer was recorded as Thomas Ruddled, master of the sprawling Belmont estate. No one at the time could have guessed that this peculiar transaction would unleash events that would doom an entire family, destroy a prosperous plantation, and leave a haunting legacy that refused to fade even after the house itself turned to ash. Belmont Estate, sitting on the eastern edge of Prince Edward County, had long been a symbol of Virginia's aristocratic pride. 30,000 acres of rich soil, tilled by 40 enslaved laborers, supported a grand Georgian mansion of red brick and white columns. To outsiders, it represented stability and success, but beneath its polished surface ran the quiet tension of debts, decay, and human despair. Thomas Ruddled, at 37, was tall, austere, and deliberate, a man sculpted by the expectations of lineage and class. He had inherited the estate along with its debts 7 years prior and spent every day since trying to preserve its reputation, if not its soul. To his peers, he was the image of a respectable Southern planter, stern, pious, efficient, and above reproach. But those who looked closer saw the cracks, a hollowness in his gaze, a distance in his words, a man bound more by duty than desire. His wife, Catherine Ruddled, 10 years his junior, had once been the glittering jewel of Richmond society. Slim, fair, and exquisitely poised, she had entered marriage with a generous dowry that had saved Belmont from collapse. But money could not purchase happiness, nor could it heal the wound left by the stillbirth of her only child 2 years earlier. Since that tragedy, Catherine had retreated inward, spending her days secluded in her upstairs sitting room, staring out the windows at the endless rows of tobacco fields, as though searching for something she had lost in them. The neighbors still called her graceful, but her beauty had become ghostly, an echo of the woman she once was. The Ruddles lived out their genteel misery behind closed doors, performing the rituals of plantation life like actors in a play they no longer believed in. Thomas chaired local committees, Catherine hosted luncheons, and both smiled for appearances. Beneath it all, silence stretched between them, thick as the humid Virginia air. Into this fragile quiet arrived Samuel Wickham, a slave trader with a reputation for dealing in specialty acquisitions. Thin, sharp-eyed, and always clad in a black suit too fine for the road, Wickham carried with him not only a ledger but a sense of the macabre. A man who trafficked in human oddities the way collectors prized rare gems. When he arrived at Belmont that August morning, he brought news of something so unusual that even the weary, pragmatic Thomas Ruddled found his curiosity stirred. After exchanging polite conversation about crop prices and political unrest, Wickham leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I have come into possession of a remarkable specimen, Mr. Ruddled, one I believe might interest a man of your intellect." From his pocket, he produced a bill of sale from Charleston. "This slave," he said, "is no ordinary servant. Their previous owner, a physician by the name of Dr. Albert Stroud, documented the case extensively. The individual is what the medical profession calls a hermaphrodite, a person born with the attributes of both sexes." Thomas stared at him in stunned disbelief. Wickham continued, his tone now almost reverent. "The physician educated the slave, trained them for examination, ensured obedience without resistance. Their name is Jordan, age 19, health, excellent mind, bright, a rare specimen, I assure you, and one that men of science would pay dearly to observe." For a long moment Thomas said nothing. His rational mind told him this was absurd, a grotesque curiosity, nothing more, yet something within him, a buried hunger he barely understood, leaned toward it. He thought of his wife, distant and unreachable, and of his own suffocating emptiness. "I will need to see the slave," he said finally. 20 minutes later, Jordan stood before him, The figure in the doorway defied comprehension, neither wholly male nor female, yet possessing a beauty that transcended both. The face was delicate, the eyes dark and intelligent, the posture submissive yet self-aware. When ordered to speak, Jordan's voice emerged in an uncanny middle tone, balanced perfectly between masculine and feminine, unsettling in its ambiguity. "My name is Jordan, master. I can read, write, and cipher. I am obedient and willing to serve." Something unspoken passed between master and slave in that instant, an awareness that this transaction was about more than labor or possession. It was the beginning of obsession. "I'll take it," Thomas said, his voice quieter than he intended. The sale was completed before noon. Wickham departed satisfied, and Thomas stood alone with his new purchase, his thoughts swirling in equal parts fascination and dread. He led Jordan not to the slave quarters, but to a small cottage near the gardens, a place isolated from the others, a place where privacy could be assured. "You'll stay here," he instructed. "I'll decide your duties later." That night, Thomas told Catherine about Jordan over dinner. She listened absently until he mentioned the slave's unusual condition,